Hey you guys, I had quite a few people ask me to show how to make the flowers that I demonstrated when I did this mixed media project share the other day. So today I want to get started on that. I'm going to do this on a tag that has been prepped with gesso, and it doesn't matter if you use clear or acrylic or white gesso, you just need to make sure the surface is prepped. And I'm going to use my gelatos in the blue tones, and I'm going to use the dark, the medium, and the light tones. I'm going to just put just an itty bit of each color on the thing. These gelatos have a waxy tip on them, but they go on like crayons, and a little teeny tiny bit of pigment goes a long way. I'm going to spritz it with water and then just take my finger and rub it around, and that's going to give me the colors all over the page like it's been painted. I like to use a circular motion with my fingers, and also by using 3 different colors you're going to get some tone on tone effects too, and it gives it a lot of texture and supplies your highlights with your shadows and your midtones all at one time. Then I dried that really good, and now I'm taking the apple barrel paint in kiwi and green apple. Green apple is the darker color, and a flat brush, and I'm going to just brush it through so that both tones of the color are on my brush at the same time, and I'm going to let that drip. What you didn't see is I had sprayed that paint with some water so that it was really liquidy. And then I'm going to come in and just drop that down at the bottom. This is going to give me my stems for my flowers and offer you know, the grassy textures at the bottom. I'm just encouraging that to drip more by putting my finger in it, and then decided I needed a little water to make it just go crazy. So I blotted it up because it was just a little bit too much, but I'm adding it back in and down at the bottom just to give a little more texture. Layers and layers and layers of paint are key here. Now I'm taking a smaller flat tip brush, same concept, both and then both colors, and what I'm doing is I'm taking the tip and I'm just kind of fanning it out to make the leaves on each side. I'm not an expert painter. You don't need to be. Just go with it. Play like a child. I'm just going to add a few of the green tips to the top of the stems, and then that's going to give me a base for building my flower on top of. If you look at a rose, the bud, the bottom of the bud is always got this little piece of green foliage at the bottom. Now I heated that up and dried it really good, and I'm just taking a paper towel and blotting up all the big splotches of paint that were not dried yet, and what it's doing is it's lifting that paint off, but it's leaving this really nice texture down at the bottom. I love how this looks. Then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to do a circular motion using that pink paint, which is from Jacquard, and it's textile paint. It's called Pink 104. And I'm just going to do like making a figure like an E, like if you were drawing a letter E, a lowercase letter E on the tops of the stems. And what that's going to do is it's going to create my swirl for my bud. And I'm only using the pink. Then I come back with a different finger and I put a little bit of white on it, and it might be a little much at first, but we'll work it in. And you're just going to put a little dot in the center and kind of swirl it around too. A little bit goes a long way with the white, but notice how the white kind of blends in with the pink a little bit, and it helps for to create like a dimension to these buds. So again, I'm just building out my letter E. Now I'm going to come back with a little bit of the darker pink on the base of the flower in the front bottom, and I'm also going to put it around the back of it. That is going to give it that bulb shape. The darker color should always be towards the bottom because it gets less sun and it creates that nice shadow, and it also helps to define your petals for your flowers. And again, I'm just working it in. It takes layers and layers of this to get it right, so you just kind of have to walk away from it and come back to it after it dries just a little bit, or it gets muddy, and you don't want muddy. So I'm just adding a couple of extra little flowers here and there. and my paint is starting to mix on my palette, so I'm having a difficult time picking up that true maroon color, but that's okay. I'm going to work with it because I wanted it to soften up these flowers just a bit anyway. I'm going to find me some of that darker color and come back and place it down towards the bottom of these bulbs. And I'm wiping off my fingers right now because I think they're really getting too contaminated. Keep baby wipes handy when you're working with stuff like this. It's very important. So now that my flowers have dried and I've added the sufficient amount of red towards the bottoms, I'm going to come back with my greens, and I am going to continue to add a little bit more of the foliage at the bottom of each of the buds. It's really important to make sure that you allow your paint to dry in certain stages. You know, I've stopped the video and let it dry, or I've hit it with a heat tool off camera. But now I'm taking this gelatos, and you want to do this with a clean finger. As you can see, you don't want, you know, to contaminate the rest of your layout. But if you do, this is all watercolor. Just take a wet baby wipe, wipe around the edges. I had gotten some pink and some green up in my sky, so I was just trying to correct that with some of the gelatos. Now I'm going to take the Faber-Castell's Pitt pens, and I'm going to draw down the stems. The cool thing about these pens is they're India ink, so you can take your finger and just rub down, and it will blend them into whatever you're working on. So it gives them a nice charcoal look if you're using the black. If I had had the green pens, I probably would have used them in place of the black, but I do like how the black offers that little bit of a shadowing, and it helps to really define the stems. Now the only way that this will work is on a prepped surface. So if you were to use these as a pen on a piece of just plain copy paper or cardstock, it would not smear like this. So they're excellent for drawing as well as you know, just using them as markers. Then I decided I wanted just a finer little bit of black that I can control a little bit better, so I pulled out one of my charcoal pencils and began to just draw in some of those finer details around the foliage, such as the leaf and the veining and the leaves and things. Again, if I had green, I probably would have used a darker green, but since all I have is the black, that's what I went with. But I do like how the black helps to ground the flowers a little more. Then to blend them in, I just took my finger and kind of rubbed them. That kind of helps to soften up the lines a little bit and makes them kind of work with the abstractness of the painting a little more. And then I'm just taking a little bit of that green on my finger and rubbing it in to bring back some highlights that I had hidden behind all of that black. Wash your hands very good. I cannot stress this enough. Then take your white gelato, and I'm putting in the clouds. Now the white gelato is blending in with the blues, so it's not really intense enough. So I just picked up a little bit of the white off of my palette there and blending that in with it. What this does is it lets the gelatos be the shadows of the cloud, while the gesso or white paint is the highlights of the cloud. Then I found a Martha Stewart punch and punched out a couple of butterflies from a hymnal page to include on the tag. I'm using glue and seal from Ranger to glue them down. You could use matte medium or any kind of wet adhesive really, but you want to make sure that you get complete coverage with the wet adhesive so they don't buckle. And I'm just placing them down on my canvas or my tag. Then I'm going to go over the tops of them again with the glue and seal, and this is going to seal them up, but it's also going to give me a prepped surface so that I can add the gelatos back in on top of them. Once the glue and seal is dried on your butterflies, and I hit it with a heat tool to just kind of set it a bit, I'm going to pull out my gold gelato, and I'm going to actually make these butterflies kind of look like they belong as part of this painting a little better. They stick out just a bit too much. And I'm just going to hit the top of those butterflies with that gold Gelato and then rub it in with my finger. And what this does is it kind of tones them down just a bit and just makes them look like they are part of the surface. Then I'm taking my black Gelato and like a crayon, I'm just going to trace around the perimeter of all these butterflies. And when I rub that, what it does is it creates a shadow under the butterfly, again making it look like it belongs with part of this painting, like it was just drawn on there. And just, I'm just smearing that black down a little bit, and again you can see where it's added that little hint of a shadow around. And I just went back over it again with some of the gold to just kind of bring up the gold pieces just a bit more. So thank you guys for watching me create this. I hope this helped you figure out how to make these little flowers, and please leave me comments. I appreciate all the comments that I've been getting lately. Also, don't forget to visit my blog at www.cyclemomscrapbooks.blogspot.com. Thank you for watching.